I want to jump right into the show, but I'm looking at the monitor. We have a monitor in case there's a monitor we can see ourselves. And I'm looking. When I looked in the mirror when I left, I looked good. Now I look on camera. I know the camera ends 10 pounds, but it looks like it added 100. I feel like
you look good.
I'm growing the beard for a thing. I can't see you in the monitor. Let me see. I look like a field of what is? I don't even know what this color is.
What's weird?
What do you call this color?
Let me say it's. You know what the color is?
It looks like an anemic person bled out. Is what it looks like to me.
It's a tangerine-ish kind of. Yeah, it's not something you find in nature.
No, and I'm going to make an admission right now. It's a Seinfeld show. It's a
Is it really from the show?
Oh yeah.
How? Okay, people don't know this. I always laugh when we do live shows.
Yeah.
I ask trivia of people. We do quizzes with the audience members, and it's always fun. And I ask questions, and I go, does Jason still have Seinfeld clothing from a show that was on 500 years ago? And they go, no. And I go, he's wearing it now.
I'm wearing it right now.
I know you have shoes that you like.
Yeah, I don't wear the sneakers because I think they have value. There was one pair of blue suede Nike sneakers with the swoosh that I wore like for 9 years, and I took them with me. I didn't take much when the show ended, but I took the sneakers.
But I know the pants. I know the jacket.
I took the jacket, pants, and jacket. I took my entire 9 seasons worth.
And can I give the trivia? Give the trivia that most people don't know that we also use as Seinfeld trivia about your clothing over the course of Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, so Charmaine Simmons was our wardrobe designer through most of it, and we'd get a new shirt and they'd tailor it and look great, and I'd wear it for one episode, and it would come up for another episode, and I go, Jesus, I think that are the pants short? Did they shorten my sleeves?
So you thought you were gaining weight, and
I thought I'm either gaining weight or somehow is a dry cleaner shrinking them. And she goes, "Oh yeah, no, I'll talk to them. I think it's fine for now, but I'll talk." Well, what she was doing behind my back was shortening my sleeves and shortening my hemlines and tightening the waist ever so that George always looked a little uncomfortable.
And always uncomfortable. And you never knew it until
never
when?
Told me.
Until when?
Until we were wrapped.
So for 9 years, you couldn't figure out why nothing
What's going on? Yeah. But I took all those clothes.
But just think about that.
Yeah.
One of the principals of the show was not told that their wardrobe was being shrunken.
And I wanted to say, I didn't say at the time, who knew? Who did you tell you were doing this? Because
who got the approval for
it? Do I have to turn around and backslap Jerry and Larry? Who knew about this?
Who did know?
I don't know. I never
That's
asked.
fascinating. I wonder if Larry did that intentionally or Jerry.
I don't know. But it was genius. But anyway, so I don't know. I'm just looking in the monitor, seeing a little.
You look wonderful.
Well, God bless you. The beard, is for a role.
The beard's for
I don't
show?
think. I got paparazzi the other day in a parking lot, and love the headline: Jason Alexander unrecognizable, and there was speculation.
Yeah, by the way, they think you're turning into like Nick Nolte.
Yeah,
you're like this.
Yeah.
I don't mean to knock Nick Nolte.
Right, sure.
But yeah, they think.
Have I fallen on hard times? And I'm going. And they first they say, has he fallen on hard times? Then they
was in the article.
Yeah.
You grew a beard.
Yeah, what's going on?
Everybody, when they fall upon hard times, grows a beard. They stop shaving.
Absolutely. And then, but in the same article, they go, Jason Alexander, whose estimated net worth is blah, blah, blah. And it's always at least 2 or 3 times what I know my net worth to be. And I want to keep inviting them down and go, please show me
where is the rest of this money.
I'll split it with you, 50-50.
If you show me where the money is, I'll buy a razor.
You bet.
I can buy a razor.
But I love Jason Alexander, unrecognizable. I go, then how'd you recognize me? You wrote a whole article. Anyway, paparazzi would be a strange job. But strange jobs. Because our guest today has several that don't seem to go together.
I love this guy. I fell in love with him. I don't usually call people or talk to people ahead of. Every once in a while I'll talk as a prep. Mm-hmm. I fell in love talking to him too because he's a veterinarian. Great veterinarian too. Uh-huh. So I got some pet questions.
In fact, he's a TV veterinarian.
He's a TV veterinarian. Yeah, right. He was one of people's most top available bachelors. He also does stand-up comedy.
Sure.
And the big thing is he was a bouncer for some of the biggest people. Elvis, The Who, the Rolling Stones, and the reason that he changed jobs and got serious about his life was Keith Richards gave him job advice. So he's got stories galore about being a bouncer, So you said to me in preparation of, there are a lot of jobs you did that I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, considering that I started acting professionally when I was 14, and I left college at 19 or 20 because my career had become consistent enough that it was a choice, either start your career or finish college, so I went with the career. But given that, I had some unusual jobs. I worked at Baskin Robbins. I was an ice cream scooper. I had several jobs at a hospital, from working in the kitchen as a dishwasher.
Nepotism, because your mom was in
my mother, was one of the administrators in the hospital. But I worked in the kitchen. I worked in the laundry room. For a little bit, I was involved with the morgue. It was all lovely. I sold puppies out of a mall, out of a pet store in a mall.
So I did not know.
Yeah, I worked for Puppy Palace, as a matter of fact.
God, I remember those places.
I'm trying to think if I was a busboy at a couple different places. Never a waiter. I knew I couldn't do that. But, did you have cockamamie
So I'm the busboy, of course.
Yeah.
But I worked in a cardboard factory where my union rep was this place was so tough that the nicest guy was the Irishman who was my union rep.
Oh, really?
For 3 summers. Oh, yeah. You said the wrong thing at lunch, and I had knives pulled out, knives put on me, and all kinds of stuff there. I worked for Film Corporation of America in a dark room, which was pitch black, with a guy who was actually blind and had a German Shepherd Seeing Eye dog who, when I would go in the room, if I moved the wrong way and even touched the dog, he would snap and bite
lovely,
me.
yeah.
So I quit that after the 3rd bite.
Lovely.
I quit that. I did longshoreman thing. And I drove for a friend of mine exotic cars that were going to auction. So he's driving the bullet-riddled car from The Godfather.
Jeez.
And I'm driving behind him in some Ferrari thing. And I didn't tell him I really am not that good at shifting. And I blew out the whole engine, left that by the side of the road. So I had a series of jobs that did not turn out well.
You know what that reminded me of? I don't know what you said that sparked this. I was one of the actors that they would come to in Livingston, New Jersey for the emergency drills for first responders. So they would enact a disaster.
And you're the actor?
And then they would tell fire and ambulance, and it's an enactment, but you have to treat it. It's a drill, so you got to treat it like you're real. So I would go, and they would say, "Okay, you have a shattered left leg, your right lung is punctured, and you're freaking out. You have blood loss, and you're freaking out." And then I was always the guy they would kind of hide, because there's always, like, when you clear an area, you want to make sure you got everybody, right? So
you're the guy.
I would be not in the obvious place.
And did you make noise?
Well, you make a little bit of noise, but they have to find you. Is the thing?
Don't they have cadaver dogs?
I can't tell you 2 times.
They didn't find you?
I'm left for dead. They never found me. And I remember one time. Now it doesn't say, you have to know what you've got, right? So they're doing a check the way they would with a non-respondent victim, and they're misdiagnosing me left and right, and I'm in the ambulance going, Jesus Christ, I didn't pull that off.
Oh, you felt like
I felt like I was a failed performance because they didn't know I had,
ruptured spleen and that. They thought it was pancreas. I'm horrible.
Oh man, what a failure I am.
Is there award shows for that?
No.
Best.
There's not a check. There's not a thank you. There's nothing. No.
Did you get paid for that?
No.
Really? No, really. Really? No, really. Really?
All right, bouncer, comedian, veterinarian, doctor Kevin Fitzgerald. First of all, you're sitting right now, but you're a tall man, but you have such a gentle demeanor. I'm having trouble imagining you as a bouncer, and or you being standing up one day and going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to strong arm people out of clubs in theaters. How did that come to be?
Well, it started off early. I mean, I was a kid in Denver, and I was working the door at different places, and Barry Fay was a promoter in Denver, and we were doing things with Golden Gloves, boxing and smokers, and then they said, I saw me fight and said, "I got a great job for you, $1.39 an hour and a flashlight, but you'll meet more girls than Frank Sinatra, you know." And it was at a place in Boulder, and then he moved to another place, and then he started in the late '60s. The promoters realized the power of children and money with the records, you know. So and they needed bouncers, they needed security, and if you had a head on your shoulders a little bit, you didn't always have to be the biggest guy.
Right.
You could thump people if you had to.
Right.
But it wasn't about that. You know, when I worked for the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Callahan was the head bouncer, and he said, "This isn't about bloody mouths. This is about no bloody mouths and no lawsuits." So, you know, you go up to a guy 99 of 100 times, you could talk to him, you know. And I had a couple of friends, you know, Tony Funches, God bless him. He's this giant guy. He looked like LeBron's big brother, you know.
Wow.
And he'd go up and he'd lick the kid's face if they were being naughty. And he'd go, "Now, if I have to come back and talk to you again, next time I'll bite your face like an apple." So the kid would sit like a choir boy for the whole rest of the day.
He would lick his face.
Oh, man, it's such a thing. So you try things like that. You had psychology, you know. A lot of times there'd be look-alike people in the crowds.
Uh-huh.
For the Rolling Stones, by the end, we were taking pictures of the crowd in front of the hotel. And you'd see people and go, "That guy was in Cincinnati, and now we're in Cleveland. That guy was there yesterday. Let's go out and find out." You know, well, yeah,
What
man,
his
you
deal
got your
is, yeah.
you got your thing yesterday, and so we tried to find out and try and put people safely into the shows. You know, the name of the game was sequel. You want them to come back. You know,
Right.
and so it became a business. You know, it became, in the very beginning, working for the Flying Burrito Brothers or something, I didn't know, you know, how do we eat? You know, you gotta call a room service. And, you know, the bills should still be coming in. You go, "Well, what's this surf and turf? That looks pretty good. And I see you have pie. Could you bring me a whole pie?" You know, and you're a kid, you don't know. We were bouncers. But you wanted to do a good job. You know, you were proud of your work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about thumping heads always. You know, if you had to, you could, but it was about getting people in safely and man, to be a little boy from Denver and get to go on a Rolling Stones tour, it was like running away with a circus. I mean, it was just, you know, I remember Bobby Keys, the saxophone player, told me, he goes, "How old are you?" And I said, "You know, you're 18, you know, you're 21, right?" "Oh yeah, I'm 24. You know, "No, you're not." You know, he goes, "Kid, you're on the Rolling Stones tour. You're shitting in high cotton. You know, this is, you know, this is
Wow.
This is great." I went out in 2002 with the Wu-Tang that do security. Our old friend Butch Greer, God bless him, he's gone now too, but he had fired us from Earth, Wind, and Fire in 1996. "I'll never work with the Irish again," you know. And so then he called us in 2002, and I said, "You got something you need us for, you know. It's going to be something different." So it was great. They got RZA, Jizza, Inspector Deck, Ghostface Killer, Master Killer, Raekwon, Method Man, Old Dirty Bastard. Let's see, is that it? Yeah. That's it. I did it. It's like the name in the Seven Dwarfs. But, you know, but it was great. It was great music. I mean, but it's not my generation, but
Sure.
you realize it's a touchstone of another generation. They look back with their girlfriend and go, "Remember that song?" And, you know, it's different.
So are there different, so with security, some of the names that pop up? You did Elvis, right?
We did hired the Rolling Stone bouncers for a while, yeah.
For Elvis.
Yeah, and so at different days, it was different. You know, you wanted to do a good band. You didn't want Wife and Baby Duty, or you didn't want, you know. I remember I got a Billy Graham tour, the Evangelist. You know, and I was calling him. I said, "What am I doing? I got a month before I go back to school. You know, what do you got?" "Oh, I got a Billy Graham tour." "Billy Graham, the Evangelist?" "Yeah, he needs a bouncer. He needs two guys." So we did it. We just gotten off the Rolling Stones, and so we have one guy on one side of the stage, one on the other, but the people get the spirit on them, yeah? And they're in the crowd, you know, and they start talking in tongues and, you know, getting more and more jazzed up, and they jump up and run the stage. So my buddy John Ryan standing there, you know, we carried a piece of lead in our sleeve, yeah? So that you can't hit somebody in the head with it, but you could, you know, testicles.
So they run into you on hitting that.
Yeah, so the guy's running down full speed like, blah, 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 blah. he's talking in tongues and running, and Ryan clotheslines him and stands on his chest. And I go, no, baby, he wants it. They want him up on the stage. They want him to go up there. He goes, look at this guy's eyes. Look at his eyes. He's on something. I said, yeah, he's on Jesus and his shoe shine. Yeah, he's on the real thing.
Wow.
Wow.
He's a mainliner.
How often do you have a rod in your arm? Is that a trick, a security trick?
Well, there were different things we did, different things that. So, just a little piece of a blackjack, piece of lead, and you can't. You wear a shirt like this with no buttons, so if somebody grabs you, the buttons don't get torn off, or they can't grab you. But the main thing is not having to do it. If you could talk to him, 99 out of 100 times, the kid would be dropping firecrackers down on the crowd or say, hey, come here, what are you doing? We're gonna, I could take you, of course you could, but I'm gonna get a cop and 4 other guys, and we're gonna throw you out, and you and your little girlfriend will be outside. Or sometimes you'd see the real scary ones. Oh, you know what? You won the prize for the band wants to meet you. So I'm going to take you right now. Come with me. You're going to meet the band. And you go around the corner, and there's 4 guys, and get him in an arm bar, and you throw him out to the cops.
Did it ever get physical for you? Did you ever have to?
Well, every night.
It did.
Yeah.
What was like? What
yeah,
was
we
your
were working
worst?
for Santana, and we were working in El Paso. Man, they were like the Beatles, and the opening act was Cheech and Chong before they were famous, and it was so great. So there were 3,000 or 4,000 young kids outside without tickets. It was starting to get dark, and we're playing at El Paso at the football stadium for the college, and and they're starting to push on the fences a little bit, the Elkhart fence, and the bouncers there, they're starting to. What you do is the band has security people, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or however many they need. But then you hire the people in that town, and you hire football players or rugby teams or weight rooms, and then so these kids were, they're thumping the kids' hands on the, oh, don't do that, and they pull that fence down. They're going to remember that Sure enough, the fence went down, and man, they knocked me down and broke my glasses and were pulling my hair, and all of a sudden Tony Funch's these big black hands came through. He picked me up and he said, stand up, grab the back of my belt. I didn't bring you down here to die in El Paso. Wow. So sometimes there'd be times where it was scary.
I got to tell you one Cheech story, because I was friendly with Cheech for a long time.
Yeah.
I said, how tough were your gigs? He said, we played the toughest bars in the world. I said, how tough? He said they'd put a rat in a pitcher of beer, and they'd have a contest to see if a guy could drink the beer down before he got bitten in the face by the rat. I said, that's the kind of...
Do you call that tough?
Is
that tough by you?
Wow.
I was going to say, no, Kevin's talking about hiring the local guys to be... I remember directing a movie, and we had to shoot in Brooklyn, and we went to location scout this thing. And, it's a little bit of a rough street. And a couple of the local guys come up, and they go, what you doing? I said, well, we're going to be shooting a movie. They go, what you doing for security? I said, well, it comes with security. They go, yeah, no, you're going to need some security. And sure enough, so I don't know who did the deal, but I later heard the story. They said, look, we can be your security, or we can be the reason you need security. And they said, you give us $500 a night, I promise you, your equipment's going to stay on the truck. Your trucks are going to stay on the street. And that was the smartest thing we ever did, was they hired the local guys and just paid them and said, yeah, I'll tell you what.
Because they knew who they were working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who of the groups, because I saw it's the Who, you did the Who, you did Willie Nelson, Bob Marley. I mean, what stands out with you? Did you get to hang with the groups? Did you get to know the people?
No, you see, that's a mistaken thing. You're not part of the band, and if you think you are, and you start hanging or pretty soon they're like, how come we're paying you? If you and so you I got asked back because I worked hard,
But you did have a thing with Keith Richards. I mean, that's a big story.
Well, I mean, you travel with people and you get to know them and they get to know you and need something. But Willie, Willie's so kind. He's just the best guy ever, and he likes the people. Some of those people have the same thing in common that they did. Joan Rivers did it. Joan Rivers was so kind to her people, and they'd come up and they'd say, Joan, and she would ask them where they lived or what they did, and they'd talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And, then she'd leave, and the guy hadn't found out anything about her,
Yeah.
but he talked for a minute about it, and he'd go, well, how nice she was.
Yeah.
And Keith did the same thing. What do you do? I sell aluminum siding in Cleveland, and, oh, yeah, it's got to be interesting. What do you, yeah, I've been doing that. This is my wife. Yeah, we got 3 kids. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then they'd leave, and he'd say, you see that, Kevin? All people want to do is talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And Willie was the best, he would always, have time for the people. And see, the other thing is, there weren't cell phones in '69, so it's for selfies and stuff,
Yeah, right.
and there wasn't, and so there wasn't, we didn't need to sign a disclaimer that you're going to write a book. The Spanish Tony Sanchez wrote a book, Up and Down with the Rolling Stones, and then the next there, we were going out, and he goes, they haven't called me. Oh yeah, they're not going to call you, baby.
You betrayed your confidence.
No, you don't. Yeah. You didn't talk about, and people ask me all the time about the dirt, but you try and say the nice things, you try.
Well, it's funny, when I talked to you prior to this, because we had a really nice conversation, I said, will you tell some of the stories? And you said only positive stuff. And I said, that's all we want. I don't need dirt on people. We only want positive. The thing that moved me about the Jagger story that I heard, and you should tell it, was about what Mick Jagger does before the shows, because you don't get a sense of these people as human beings. See them on stage in a moment in time, and you get who they are. So it's
they're people,
impressive.
or they get tired, or they get hungry, or they get, so they're just, you think of these people, but sometimes they're bigger than life, but a lot of times they're just, they're just like anybody else.
But talk about what Jagger, I know you've told it before, but what Jagger does at each
Well,
venue.
at the shows, my job was the front of the stage, and when I'd do the advance, I'd go a day, 2 days ahead of the band and look at the hotel. How can we get from the venue to the hotel? How can we get from the airport to the hotel? And so when you get to the area, you'd be with your bouncers from that town, and you'd be behind the barricade at the show. So my thing was the front of the stage for the shows, and stay with your kids, and they get scared or whatever happens. You show, no, here's how we do it. This is nothing to be scared of, and you're okay. When the lights go out, the kids on the sides of the stadium would jump onto the field. And that's bad, because then the fire marshal are bad. We got to keep the aisles clear. So you have to have your bouncers start from the back and pull them back one at a time. Go back and stand with him. You go back, and so you get it. You can get it back after a while. But when they first swarmed down, they knocked the wheelchair kids out of the wheelchairs. So you couldn't have the wheelchair people in those days on the floor. So in those days, I'm talking about the 60s, early 70s when I did it, they'd stigmatize them. They'd put all the wheelchair kids up together in the same area,
Right.
have a wheelchair area. Come on. Little guy wants to be with his friends, and now he has to be,
Right,
it wasn't
isolated.
right. They don't do it anymore. But in those days, Jagger would say, where are they? And I'd say 323. And how many chairs? 23 chairs. And I'm dating myself, but I'd get a cassette tape and a T-shirt, 23 of those, And he wouldn't stay and talk to me. And he didn't do it as a photo op. And just run down the chairs, and put a cassette tape and just, and a T-shirt. Oh man, we couldn't do it, hi, baby. Thanks for coming. Bam, 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 bam.
Wow.
And walk back, and every time he'd go, how come, Kevin? Ever thought, how come we're so lucky? We're not in a chair.
Yeah.
And I never forgot. I mean, the guy, one of the hippest guys in the world is now forgotten, where he's from, and so that was always inspirational to me later on in life. That you get tired or you get impatient and stuff, but you can't forget how lucky you are.
Yeah.
He hadn't forgotten where he'd come from.
And still, are you joyous when you say, I am, when you see 84-year-old Ringo's touring? Jagger still looks great and touring and still doing it. A lot of the groups that you worked with, still 50 years later.
And by the way, if they were smart, they'd hire you again for security and bouncing. Right now.
That's just what he wants to do. Leave his veterinary practice to go on the road.
Absolutely. We go back to our roots,
but
Peter.
sometimes about every 3 years, I start getting itchy. Think I should be going out. It's. It kind of wrecks you. And you kind of. When I go to a concert, I look and I think, those guys shouldn't be standing over there. That's a those guys they could get on the stage.
Yeah.
I did security my whole life.
So you went and became a veterinarian. Can you give the wisdom of Keith Richards? Keith Richards, I still laughs that he's the guy who pulled you aside and said, "This is your future."
And what were those magic words? You should be taking care of dogs.
Well, at the end of the '78 tour, they're paying you and you're figuring out, saying goodbye, and he was like, Jimmy Callahan took me over and said, spend a minute, and I was like, he said, why don't you do something? He said, you've been with us, these tours, and you can't be a bouncer when you're 50. Why don't you? We're gonna be like the flavor of the month. They never. I don't think they ever dreamed they'd still be playing. And if you read interviews with Jagger, thinking this is gonna last 2 years.
Right.
And we're gonna. But they never dreamed it. But the old blues guys kept doing it. Buddy Guy,
right,
and B.B. King. Did it for years. So they were more to that type of thing. But he goes, why don't you go to school? You can't, I'd do something, I'd write a letter, I'd do whatever. So he wrote me a letter, for veterinary school, probably on a wall somewhere, but and he's kind. Some of these people are, you think what you know about them, or people think what they think. When anybody says stuff to me about Willie, or some of the people you've worked with say, this guy doesn't know him, this guy doesn't know Willie, or he doesn't know. Willie went through so many things. The IRS and different problems he had, but he's so nice. He'd stand in front of the stage every show and he'd look out there and go, Kevin, 99% of those people aren't with the person they want to be, and that's why my songs will always be on the jukebox.
Wow, brilliant.
Wow,
brilliant.
There's an optimistic point of view.
But
it's true. I don't want to be with Peter.
But
He was stuck. You're stuck.
I'm stuck.
But he was nice. He'd always go, fortunately we're not in control, and he had the big picture about it. But man, working with him, you just get on. There was a bus for the band, and and a bus for he and his family, and then a bus for the worker bees, bouncers and cooks and whatever,
Speaking of people, by the way, how did the most eligible bachelor issue affect your life? Did it impact you in a big way?
No, the woman called me. It was just like the woman called and she goes, "Hi, this is so and so from People Magazine. We're going to make you eligible bachelor." And it sounded like my sister-in-law. So I said, "Oh, Kathleen, that's not very nice. That's not a very nice thing." And she, "This isn't Kathleen. We really want to." But no, it didn't. You got to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Did you get calls at least? No, that was just because of we had a little TV show on Animal Planet. Animal Planet was spinning out a Discovery, all animals all the time.
Oh, I'm an
hours.
Animal Planet
watcher. And so Discovery spun it off. Animal Planet was the stuff that would happen. I worked with a crocodile hunter. I have a rattlesnake study where I've been putting radio transmitters in rattlesnakes. So he came to film the thing for this.
Are you talking Steve Irwin?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he was so nice. And I had met him 10 years before when we were showing our pilot to the network executives about our show, Emergency Vets. He was showing his pilot, and his pilot was fascinating. It was him and his wife in the darkest marsh of Australia, snagging crocodiles and throwing them on the boat. You couldn't take your eyes off it, And so he came, and we did the thing and with the snakes, and he was killed 2 weeks later. And it was what he could have done for conservation, for animals, because he had a real knack with people. He was the kind of guy like he'd sit with you, and he was one with the aura, bigger than life.
Huge aura. So, but let me ask you about so I know you, in reading about your bios, you're not a big spider fan, and you do it in your act, hair and saliva. It's not right. But snakes freak me out. We moved into our new house, which is in the foothills, and the first day we were moving in, there was a dead rattlesnake in front of the house. And I almost said, I'm selling the house before we move in, because they just freak me out. But you put transmitters on rattlesnakes. Does that mean you have to catch the rattlesnake? And where do you insert the transmitter? The picture I'm getting.
That's a professional information.
Yeah, it's a professional secret. What we do is we catch them, mark with a GPS where we caught them, take them back to the hospital, anesthetize them, right? Make a little nick, they've miniaturized the thing so much, and then I can follow them for a year. Now some of them go 2 years, sew them back up, and then we can follow them. We find out how long they live, how far they range. We found out in our snakes in Colorado go back to the same dens they were born in to hibernate, and some of the dens have. We found one with 5,000 snakes in it.
Check please.
A big hibernaculum, with the snakes, but see, they do a good service for us in terms of rodent control.
No, I get
and in terms of bubonic plague in Colorado, we get cases all the time.
I get all of that.
But
so
I could hire a guy.
It still freaks me out. So what have you? Okay, let's go into the veterinary thing, and then we'll talk about
first. Before you even go into the veterinary thing, he's talking about 5,000. Have you ever seen the video of the iguana that has to get from one thing to the ocean, but he's got to cross this expanse of desert, and he starts to run, and the snakes? It's like our nightmare. Snakes are coming out of rocks, out of trees, up out of the sand. At one point, a ball of snakes has him. He wriggles out of that thing. He keeps running. Long story short, he makes it. But if he doesn't have PTSD for the rest of his little iguana life.
When he makes it in his own iguana language, he says, holy crap, was that screwed up?
Yeah. Did nobody say, hey,
how about
why
going
did Mom
that way?
nest over there?
Were they waiting for me?
Couldn't you nest by the water?
Why didn't the cameraman save him?
Oh, but that's the other, because the cameraman was going, holy crap, look at all these snakes.
The iguana's going, guys,
I had no idea.
Put the camera down. So the snake thing, that freaks me out. But let me ask you something else about more domestic. So maybe I can run you through this real quick. Behind the scenes secrets of veterinarians. The job is a lot more dangerous than some people realize. True or false?
Well, in terms of being bitten, or in terms of being, a classmate of mine got bubonic plague from a cat that had been catching prairie dogs from the fleas, and so I've been bitten before, and cat fights. Google is such a horrible thing for veterinarians because they come in and go,
I read in Google where a dog's mouth is actually 1,000 times cleaner than a person's.
Well, yes, madam, but we don't clean our anus all day with our mouth, okay? So we can actually
very good point.
We can actually culture E. coli from all the mouths of the dog in the waiting room. So I'm sorry, Google's wrong here.
Oh my gosh!
Or they just go, I don't want to vaccinate my dog and make him autistic. Okay,
you get that? You actually get that?
Oh yeah. All I've learned, I turned 73. You and I have the same birthday, September 23rd.
Well, happy birthday,
Yeah.
because it's September 26th as we tape this.
Wow.
And
you know what? The gentleman that runs the company on the other side of the door, he's September 23rd as well.
And Bruce Springsteen.
And Mickey Rooney.
Yeah. And so
That's right. That's right,
I
Peter.
was praying that's not a longer list.
So-
It is a longer list. Would you like to know some other people?
People ask me, what have you learned in 73 years? And I just think it's about kindness, take a second to be kind. We can't do much, but we can be kind.
I want to go back just one step. Was there always an interest in veterinary medicine even when you were a kid? Because when I was a kid, I thought, I want to be a veterinarian. I think at some point, every kid who likes animals thinks, that would be cool. It turns out I'm allergic to almost every animal on the planet, so it was not viable for me. But what made you think?
Well, children are inherent naturalists.
Yeah.
The little children, my little nieces, when they were 3 and 4 years old, they knew every dinosaur, the little thing.
You betcha.
This is Tyrannosaurus Rex.
You betcha.
She can't even talk. How does she know it's a brontosaurus? She knew every different one.
This
I'm
one
with
here
you.
is
Yep.
a Triceratops.
My boys too. Yep.
And so hopefully you can. They might not become veterinarians or biologists, but they keep a feel for animals. And so I always had that feel. I applied to veterinary school when I got out of college. And I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder and applied at Colorado State. And I got put on the waiting list and said, well, show us you want to do something. And so I got into graduate school. I said, go to grad school for a year. So I got a master's and a PhD in endocrinology and taught for a while, and then the grant money was drying up. But while I was in graduate school, it was good because you could take 3 months off. My boss would let me go and go, I got Emmylou Harris is going out, you know, and so I got a thing, and you know, or Willie, or the Parliament Funkadelic, or somebody was going out.
Parliament Funkadelic.
I got to take off from school to
Wow.
go with Parliament Funkadelic. By the way, he's only telling the positive
That
stories.
is so
I can't
far
even
beyond my
imagine.
dog ate my homework.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, you got an amazing career.
Well, I mean, but I've just been lucky. I've been like Forrest Gump, you know. I've just been in the right place at the right time. I didn't.
Yeah, but
it fell into place.
You
I mean,
also stand up doing that takes a certain degree of commitment to do what you do. I was laughing. You tell a joke that made me laugh out loud. My wife has a cochlear implant, so she can't hear. You do it. You know the distance joke where the doctor says my wife can't hear. Go ahead, you do it. My wife thought it was the best. Go ahead.
That's my father's joke.
Well,
that joke
okay.
is 7 years old. Guy goes in the doctor. He says, "Doctor, I'm 89. My wife's 88. How can I?" She's very vain. She won't get a hearing test. How can I measure my wife's hearing at home? Doctor says, you got to do the home hearing test. You measure 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. You tell me how many feet she first goes away. I'll make an apparatus for a year. Guy goes home, measures 40, 30, 20, 10, 40 feet away. Honey, what's for supper? 30 feet. Honey, what's for supper? 20 feet. Honey, what's for supper? 10 feet away. Honey, what's for supper? And she says, for the fourth time, chicken.
You want a slightly bluer version.
No, the other joke.
Go ahead.
It's the same joke where the guy's 89 years old, goes to the doctor's office, says, I'm 89, my wife's 88, I need a sperm count. Doctor says, yeah, you're 89 years old. He goes, I know, just humor me. He goes, okay, take this jar home, come back tomorrow. Guy comes next day, gives the doctor the jar. Doctor says, well, wait a minute, the jar's empty. What gives it? He goes, I know, I tried my right hand, I tried my left hand, tried both hands. Neighbor lady upstairs, tried her right hand, tried her left hand, tried both hands. You know, my wife, we can't get the lid off the jar.
See?
All right, but here's the hearing joke, all right? Older woman goes to her doctor, and she says, Doctor, I'm very embarrassed. I have to tell you, I have a problem with flatulence. Thankfully, it's silent, but it's still embarrassing. On the bus ride over to your office today, I had uncontrollable silent flatulence. In the waiting room while I was waiting for you, I had 3 or 4 instances of silent flatulence, and she said, just because I'm a patient and you need to be informed. As I've been having this conversation with you, I've had 2 or 3 instances of silent flatulence. And the doctor says, well, my darling, the first thing we have to check is your hearing.
And there we go.
That's a great joke.
By the way, as we wrap up, I got to ask you some veterinary stuff because I just read an article the other day. I saw an article about a dog that was sad at home. Something was wrong with him at home. And when he went to the doctor's office, he was happy and everything was fine. And the veterinarian discerned the dogs fake it, that the dog at home was acting sad to get treats. And as soon as he got to the veterinarian's office, he always got a treat when he walked in, so he didn't have to fake. Have you ever seen dogs fake it that way before with their owners or their personalities?
We don't give dogs enough credit, you know, or other animals enough credit for what they can perceive. And certainly dogs have a longer term memory than people thought, and realize different things, realize how they can, you know, get treats, and you know, and they know people that like them or don't. You know, I think animals are you know, amazing. I've been very lucky, you know, working with animals. Veterinary medicine is a harsh mistress. You know, you don't make a ton of money. I made more money bouncing, you know, but it's you know, you make your little side of the street better, maybe, you know, and that's
but you've
what it's
also
about.
made a big difference. I mean, you went on expeditions to the Antarctic. You've done
well. The conservation stuff is important because, you know, we didn't inherit this. You know, we have this wonderful biodiversity, all these wonderful animals around us, you know, and we were given this wonderful biodiversity and our intellect, and all the other animals are waiting for us to use our intellect and save the place, you know, because you know, we weren't given this wonderful world. You know, we borrowed it from our grandchildren. And in conservation, you know, I always say that our successes are temporary, but our failures are permanent. When a species becomes extinct, the world becomes a less interesting place. So I think that it's important. And there's people go, well, I can't do anything, but you can. There's a lot of things you can do. You can do things locally, or you can do things nationally, or do things globally. And, you know, like the national parks are the best idea anybody ever had. we were talking about little children. You remember when you're little, the first time, your grandfather took you out in a rowboat or something, and, you realize that there's fish, or that, you go to the zoo, and I'm on the board of directors at the Denver Zoo and the Leadership Council, and I was against zoos when I first got out of school. But I realized that more children visit the Denver Zoo every year than adults go to the Broncos, Avalanche, Rockies, and Nuggets combined. So these little minds get turned on.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you.
You rock, and I thank you for flying in and coming to see us.
Amazing, and thank you. He brought us some gifts. Thank you for the gifts.
Brought us the gifts. And where does somebody see you going out? You going out with Craig Ferguson? Where?
I'm doing some shows with Craig Ferguson, and then I'm working with Kevin Nealon.
Give Kevin a hug for us. He's an old friend.
He's
a trip.
Good guy.
They're the best. They're the best.
Good guy.
But thank you, sir.
God bless, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald.